Good evening, everybody. Tom, Champa, how are you?
Oh, doing well, Charlie. How are you?
My name is Charlie Velasquez. I am the founder and CE everything at Rugby in Florida. Welcome to season 4. We start season 4, September 1st, episode 54 of TFRO. Talking Florida.
Charlie, is this a new season because it's the new season of rugby?
Yeah, exactly.
We align with the rugby schedules. That's fantastic. No, I just picked up on that.
So did I actually recently. But it sort of makes sense. Tom Champa, right?
Champa
is one of our best referees and yellow card master. There he is. Welcome, everybody. I just want to say that if you enjoy the podcast and all the other stuff that we do, you can become a sponsor of the podcast and the website. It's something affordable and very honorable to do. Also, I just want to announce quickly that shortly I'm going to be offering the Patreon system for all those people who want to make a small contribution to Rugby in Florida. They will be able to do that. I'll be rolling that shortly. I just wanted to mention it so we can keep this like the best local rugby media in the nation, as Ross used to say all the time. Ross, if you're watching, say something, okay? So today we have an episode that I'm very excited. We're going to bring him in right away. Mariano Fillippini from the Miami Sharks, the new CEO. And after that, we're going to have a round table with all the candidates for the VP of Women that are going to be elected and the current one that are going to be elected at the AGM next September 16th. So I think we'll just bring in Mariano right now. Hello, Mariano. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure. Welcome to the podcast. And we always like to start with getting to know you a little bit in your rugby history. Tell us a little bit about where you come from.
Of course. So I was raised in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. I started playing rugby when I was 5, playing with my father in the beach, Sam Tocatas, as we say. My father is from Tandil, and I started playing rugby in San Andres Club, which is a club in the north side of Buenos Aires.
And how long did you play?
I played until my body let me, which was around 28.
Not bad.
So quite a bit. Did around 8 years of plantel superior, which is after junior divisions, and would have loved to play a little bit more, but also I moved to the US some time ago, so I wasn't able to continue playing there. But that's kind of my rugby history.
And you didn't play in the States?
I played not a huge amount of time. I played the university a little bit, and I played, but not much. I went to NYU and I played a little bit there.
Okay, your camera is losing focus for some reason. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Maybe you need to get closer. Okay, maybe it adjusts. Okay, so put us a little bit at. Let's get an update. Everybody remembers the presentation of the team, that big presentation in Miami Beach. Since then, you guys have been making, announcements now and then. Sort of bring us up to speed of what you have been up to. And I know you personally have been just for like a month, right, as CEO?
Yeah, that's right. And should we try to switch the camera for a sec just to make it?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Give me 1 second, and we'll try to switch it.
Charlie, we need to bring back the graphic of here's our Miami Sharks update. We had that every week. We had that every week for 6 months when they first announced the team.
what we used to do is Ross would ask me, "Hey, do we have any updates on MLR?" And it would be this. No,
Well, yeah, we can. Now we should ask the question. Now that we have updates, the answer can be yes.
it is. I mean, so it's. Are you excited, Tom, about the Sharks? What do you think? While this guy, while Mariano gets his camera fixed, what's your
Yep.
what's your look on? Okay.
I can't wait because I've always said that we need better rugby in the state of Florida.
Okay. Okay. Now you're okay, Mariano.
Now we're better. Now we're better.
So I was asking you of this process of setting up the franchise. I guess it was harder than everybody thought it was gonna be, right? And tell us about where you're coming from.
For sure, for sure. So since I moved to the States, I started working in media. So I spent around 8 years working in Univision. That then started. The current name is Televisa Univision, and there I moved from a corporate role to a sports division, back and forth several times in a period of 8 years. So I always wanted to work in sports. I always had that goal in my mind. Actually, when I moved from Argentina to the US, I always wanted to do sports. My sport has always been rugby, even if I love soccer as well. But my real sport has always been rugby. So when this opportunity came, it was kind of a no-brainer. This is the sport I always knew. All of my brothers, friends, and family play this sport. So it was kind of a no-brainer.
So
And
go ahead.
and with regards to how easy it is to or difficult it is to build a sports franchise in Miami. When I started in this position, I had a lot of people warn me this is not gonna be easy. And I was expecting it to be complicated and hard, but it's definitely very, very hard. However, I think we're making quite a bit of progress. Starting something from the ground is not always it's always kind of complicated, and Miami has a few particularities that makes it a bit complicated. But at the same time, Miami is booming, and the sports scene is booming here. So we shouldn't complain. And because there's quite a bit of opportunities, there's a lot of rugby people in the state that we're hoping to have a professional rugby franchise here. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity here.
Okay. So going into like more specifics, I don't know if you can tell us about one of the things that people wonder all the time is where are they going to be playing? Can we say that or not yet? Because I know that's a real that has been I know because I have talked with the other Mariano and other people who are I don't know, it's like wow, so hard here in Miami just to find a venue,
Look. I wish I could tell you where. We're hoping to do very soon, in the
very
next
soon.
10 days, an announcement. We have found a place.
Oh, good,
We
good.
are have closed the deal. It took us quite a bit of time. We're super happy and excited of where we're gonna be playing. Unfortunately, I shouldn't be saying where now, but I'm gonna say is that is definitely a place where it's gonna call attention. It's definitely a place that we're super happy, and it's definitely a place where we think that there's gonna be a lot of synergies. So that's what I can tell you until now.
We're hoping that there's going to be at least 6 different sports fields worth of lines on the field, as is tradition in the MLR.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Charlie always tells us we need a field with rugby lines and rugby lines only with the posts in the front. If we can get that, we'll be happy.
Yeah, I would have a very specific question because I'm really a field freak. I was really wondering how tall are those posts going to be? That's a concern I have. Hopefully we can go 10 meters up at least.
I see that concern. I'll owe you that answer, to be honest. At this point, I have to say we haven't gotten there yet in the height of the post.
That's
No,
phase 2, Charlie.
but the reason I say that, because when you look at a rugby field and they have these really tall posts, it just makes all the difference. It's so majestic, in my opinion. But I am a field freak, so I'll give you that.
I mean, and Charlie, I guess that you know Felipe. He kicks high, so you're concerned about that, I would imagine.
Exactly. The ARs are gonna be. I'm not sure.
Luckily, you'll have the best ARs in the business. Don't worry, Charlie.
Yeah, you may be one. Yeah, that would be really fun to see. You're gonna get screamed at pretty hard, Champa, if you're gonna be on that sideline, huh?
I got thick skin. I'm fully prepared.
So what we have seen announced over these past month is a steady flow of signings, starting of course with Tomas Cuvelli.
Yeah.
So let's sort of go over this like roster that you are building up. Tomas Cuvelli, obviously very well known player who's going to be at the World Cup.
He's going to be there. He was the last captain on the last test match of Pumas versus Spain. He did a great job. He was player MVP of the game, and we are wishing him the best in this tournament. He has quite a bit of experience. I think he has around 86 caps in Pumas. So, and we definitely think he's going to be a great leader for the Miami Sharks and what we're looking for. A fun fact there is Coach Pericena, which is a coach, was also a half scrum.
Funny fact, also I was a scrum half. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I played for my, as you can see, I have my.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I think personally, I think he's a great leader. And I'm super excited and honored for him to be part of the Miami Sharks.
Doesn't get better than that. And then we had this guy. And let me just ask you about the process, because I guess you guys are like, I just trying to imagine how does this process of finding players goes on a daily basis? Like you're 24 hours looking all around the world, I guess, because you're bringing people from.
Look, I have to say, it was kind of a process learning what is the best way, and we're still learning every day. Of course, this is a gymnastic that we weren't used to, and we're trying to figure out as we speak what is the best way to go. Kochi, the head coach, has quite a bit of has a great database of a lot of players and knows quite a bit of people all around the world. At the same time, I know that we are receiving constantly different folks that want to join the Miami Sharks. We're receiving every day a bunch of different folks that are sending videos and that they want to join. And
from all over the world, or from mostly from the States?
No, from all over the world, that's for sure. Like we've got folks that are playing in Russia, which was weird. It called my attention. From South Africa, from Australia, a lot from the Southern Cone, of course. I think for the most part, like from the Southern Cone, there's a lot of folks that want to move to Miami with everything that's happening here. So and they want to join the Miami Sharks. But so I would say that we have kind of the push and pull. We have a lot of folks that we're going and trying to find, and we've got a lot of folks that are applying themselves.
Yeah, and how does it work? Do you have talent scouts that go and look for these people? Is it Instagram DMs? How do you get in touch with these players?
With these players, basically, there's a lot of agents as well that play a big role in all of this. And as the way that we thought about it is we kind of determined which were the priorities, what were the positions that were a priority. For example, half scrum is definitely a priority because of the role that it has in the team. And we started focusing on those positions in particular. And we go outside and we ask to the agents, we ask to the different players, and we start paying attention to different scouts. Luckily, there's a lot of people that want to help. There's a lot of people that and love the sport and provide us with different options. I have to say we have a lot of options, very good ones, and it's not an easy process to do this.
I'm really glad to see some, like in this case, Alex Tucci, who is a player that started playing here, like being able to come back. That is really awesome, and I think it's it adds a little bit to the excitement for us to see people who maybe we have seen playing when they were 16 years old coming back. That's really amazing. So this is the expansion draft.
Yeah.
Uh, Basically, these are players that I don't know how this works exactly. These are players that these teams like make available to you if you want them. Is that how it works?
So basically, the way it works is, as we're a new team, all of the different franchises are putting some players that we have the right to sign a few players.
Sorry.
So the league has been kind enough to provide us with this kind of system in order for us to be able to pick some players from all of the different franchises. So, and we went through the process. We had a bigger list, and we finalized with this four. But that was kind of the first exercise that we did in the scouting in the US. So it was a very interesting process, to be honest, and we learned quite a bit from it.
Sorry, I'm having some issues here.
No problem.
So
Oh,
for
can you
the
take over,
yeah,
please.
glad.
For a second?
No problem, Charlie. I was planning on being the number one commentator anyway. So for the home games, I know you said you're working on announcing the stadium. Is the streaming and the availability of those games going to be on the Rugby Network?
Yeah, so all of the games are going to be in the Rugby Network. The idea is, I think the Rugby Network is kind of the one-stop shop for all of the MLR games, except the ones that go in Fox Sports. Yeah, they're going to be there. We're also working. We're pretty advanced on and figuring out what is the best option for the local broadcast. And we're figuring out also kind of international distribution, what is the best way to go. But we're definitely looking for partners there.
No, that's good. Tying in the rugby with the local community, I think is one thing that's really important. And so, are there any plans to bring people to the stadium? Rugby in America, I've played for the last 15 years. It's one of those. I think everyone looks around and says this is a sport that Americans should love. It's just it's not on TV. It's got all the aspects that Americans like. What are the plans to get popular and get seats filled in the stadium?
So before I answer that, what position did you play?
I was a scrum half as well. I was I was slightly better than Charlie in every stat that you can.
Yeah. Did you make it to your national team?
No, because
at any point. Oh, okay, I did. I did.
I think that says something about your national team, Charlie.
So, and we love the Miami Sharks. We love the Loteros. We really love the national team. We are betting a score, of course, in a bunch of our guys that are playing in the World Cup here. One was Felipe and Manuel, and there's one more that we're going to mention just in time. But to answer your question, you were asking if how many seats we need in the stadium, or what in particular?
No, I was asking more. How do we get attendance up at games? How do we sell tickets? What is the plan to get people to come to the games and grow the game? Get the viewership numbers up.
Look, of course we're gonna do a very aggressive plan. We plan to work quite a bit with academies, with clubs, and have a heavy involvement with the rugby community in Florida. And number two, I would say we want to create a great match experience. We want to have like an awesome match experience, and I think that's what we need to deliver. We need to make sure that we have great connection and affinity with the rugby community, but also we need to make sure that the match experience is as best as it can be. So that is what we're targeting to do.
Just let me finish up talking about the players and the roster before we move on. We know, the public knows about these 10, 11 players that you have announced. I guess you already have a bunch of other players that maybe you haven't signed. Can you give us a sense of how far are you in that process?
Of course, yeah, we can. So I would say we are over 50%. There's a bunch of players that we haven't announced, but we're moving forward fast, and we know that other franchises had some issues with the visas in the past to make sure that everyone's doing the preseason at the same time and in the same place. So we're focusing in international players first. But now that we did at the beginning, now we're focusing as well in the domestic side. But we're pretty advanced, and if in full transparency, from all of the priorities that we have in this very challenging project, the roster is a super important one. We want to have a very robust and competitive team. So if I had to put it in it's definitely in the top 3 of the priorities as of now.
And when are you planning to have your basic roster all together and starting to practice? When January. Is that going to be? In January?
January, yeah.
And the season starts mid-February. I'm not sure next year when it's going to start.
They pushed it until the beginning of March.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, they pushed it back until March, the first weekend of March. I think it's March 1st or 2nd. And
so you have a couple of months.
Our opening game, and we want to invite everyone in rugby in the Rugby Florida community to come and assure them that it's going to be a great spectacle. We're planning to do a few surprises as well.
Are we going to have a couple of preseason games?
We are actually right now. It's something that we're working on. We're working on which would be the best preseason games that we could have, and that's actually there's going to be there. I'm not sure yet if those are going to be open to the public or not. I would imagine so, but that's something that we're figuring out as we speak.
Charlie's going to figure out a way to just show up and take pictures. So,
oh yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, we can invite him. That's for sure. That's something that I can commit to.
We talked to this on the phone, but have you considered inviting Messi for the kickoff of your first game? He should be a good drop kicker. I'm pretty sure.
Look,
I'm pretty sure.
Messi is always going to be invited, as you can imagine. Messi for us, and for any professional player, I think it's a lot. So we absolutely would love to have him coming to a game, to a training, to whatsoever, as we love Messi.
That will definitely bring you some good press also.
We'll have to have Ross text him.
Okay. I was thinking that it's probably a big challenge also putting my opinion on this franchise. I think it's going to be special because of the type of players you're bringing in. And the question is, I guess it's a challenge to get these players from such different, you're going to have a lot of, players from South America, of course, and to get them even because of the language thing, right?
United, and that's definitely something that Kochi Vicena is super into. He's definitely has super, and he constantly mentions about the importance of building a team and the culture of a team. So, and that has a lot to do with, there's going to be folks that are moving all around the world, all around the country, moving to Miami, and they're going to be meeting there. And it's super important to provide the players with, a place where they feel comfortable and they could have the best performance as they can. So that's definitely something that is in our radar, and it's something that we want to focus on, because I think it's super correlated to the performance of the team.
Yeah, and Charlie and I were talking before the show here, but there were some teams in the MLR that prior to their first season in the league, they had an exhibition season. I believe New England and the DC team both played a full season together as a team with the coaching and most of the players before they entered the league. Was that a team decision, or was that a league decision to gather the players and just start from day one?
Look, I think it's just the way it went. I think there wasn't something before, a team before that would that was ready to go to the MLR and start working, and start doing a professional rugby team. So I think it's just the way it went.
No, it's good. I mean, as a fan, as a South Florida resident, somebody who wants the team, I say go. We want you. If you play this weekend, I'll be there.
And we're super open to any kind of recommendations as to in particular with the folks that have experience in Florida, have experience in rugby in Florida. Any kind of advice, we're the way we put it is we're building this together as well. So we want to make sure that all of the community of rugby here in Florida feels identified with this club and help us build it from the ground up. And I think that is also kind of the spirit of Miami, where folks all over the different places move. This is an incredible melting pot from cultures from everywhere, and they build their reality here, their present here, with hard work and by committing to where they are. So any kind of advice, Tom, more than welcome.
Yeah, what Florida's got best is the weather from January through April. Hosting the finals in July might not be our best advice, but the beginning of the year, everyone wants to be down here. Everybody wants to live in Florida in February.
Yeah, even other franchises want to play friendly matches together.
Well, the only reason Atlanta didn't move to Miami was because it was taken, so they had to go to California. Mariano, other than the first team, are you guys planning to have like an academy or developmental team?
Yes. So
is that going to be like starting at the same time, or it's a little bit further down the road?
Yeah. So we actually put quite a bit of thought into that and into a plan. So for starters, we are kicking off a camp series on September 17th, where there's going to be activities for all kind of ages, starting with from 8 to 14. There's going to be clinics for folks from 16 to 18, and then we're going to have tryouts for the first team. And this is kind of our first step into presenting ourselves with the rugby community. Everyone who wants to learn about the sport, everyone that loves the sport as we do, is more than welcome to join us. And that is probably going to be the kickoff also to the academy efforts that we're hoping to do. Throughout the year, we're also going to work with the different clubs, with the different unions in academies. And yes, we're hoping to do quite a bit of work in academies, in the academy place. Because we know that in order to grow the sport in Florida, which is what we want to do, and a main driver of our success and growth is to grow the sport. And the younger folks get into the sport, the better. So
you are going to be also working with the youth.
Yeah.
Correct.
But I hear, Charlie, that you know quite a bit about that word in Florida.
A little bit. I've been around for a little bit. Well, we do have this. Of course, you already know this. Our select side for Florida, the Florida Jaguares, they actually went a couple of months ago to Boston, and they played other academies, MLR academies, and they actually, kicked ass. They
won beat up on all the other MLR teams.
I hear.
So that's a good start. There's a lot of interest, of course, of this first activity you're going to do. Can you tell us about? You already have a lot of people signing up. How is that going?
we were surprised after, I think it was like 24 hours or something like that. We had over 200 folks already signed
Wow.
and registered into the event. We had to increase the max in the Eventbrite twice now.
Okay. Wow.
So I don't know exactly in what is the number, but I think confirmations we have over 300 in the Eventbrite. You know, then there could be no no shows, but we've had quite a bit of reception.
And what about for the tryouts? How's that looking?
Yes, we have a list. A lot of folks want to come and show what they've got, and we've got over 60 folks that
And
are.
there's no restrictions there. Anybody can go, or you guys.
What we are trying to communicate to everyone, like we're super open, but we know it's going to be super competitive. And we've got a bunch of folks that are signing, and there's not real restrictions, but we strongly recommend folks that are trained, well trained, that have experience to sign in. And this is a tryout for the first team, so we take it super seriously. And our head coach is going to be there scouting. So folks that really want to do this in seriously are the ones that we're targeting to for the tryouts in particular, not for the event, but for the tryouts in particular. Yes. We recommend folks that are well trained, that know the sport, that have been playing the sport several years now.
Yeah, and the people who are signing up, is it local people or is it people from all over the country?
From Russia, for example.
There were a bunch of folks from overseas.
Wow.
That want to come. So we definitely were impressed with the reach that we are having for the event.
Are you getting help from the local coaches to manage these clinics for the younger ones?
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that we want to make sure to continue building that relationship. We, as the professional franchise of rugby in Florida, we want to make sure to provide the different clubs with the appropriate resources and make sure that there is a very strong connection with them and that we all work together to grow the sport here in Florida. So yes, we are working with them. Yes, we want help. And yes, we want to help as well in whatever we can.
That's a lot of pizza you're gonna need for those little kids.
Oh, I know. They're hungry. They're hungry. That's for sure.
John, I don't know if you've ever shown up to one of the Okapi games, but they show up with 70 pizzas.
And of course, this is not the only event you're planning. You already have planned a couple of more throughout the year, right?
Yeah, so it's a series of 4 camps up to now.
4 camps?
So up to now we have 4 camps already in the books. We're going to play it a little bit for by year. But September 17th, October 15th, November 12th, and December 2nd are the 4 dates that we have already in the books.
Charlie, we got to get a graphic up on the Instagram.
Yeah, it's coming. Don't worry. Okay, that's good to know, so people don't get desperate if they miss this one for whatever reason.
And Mariano, are they all going to be in Florida?
They're all going to be in Florida. They're all going to be in close by in South Florida, of course.
Excellent.
That's as of now. I know there's folks from the northern part of Florida that are looking to come. They're more than invited to do so, and we want to include them into the rugby family of Florida. And this series of 4 camps is only the beginning. We definitely are thinking about growing the number of events, but as we move forward toward the first season, we'll start figuring out what is the best way to go.
Good. Charlie's already promising free tickets to the Jacksonville team, so we got to figure it out.
I did.
Charlie,
guilty. Well, I always like to, whenever I do interviews, I always like to, see what people are thinking about the Sharks. And I was talking to the coach from Jacksonville, and he was excited. So I thought, well, you know what? You can probably bring all your kids. I'll get all for your kids to come from Jacksonville, because it's really hard for them to do all that travel. I'll get you some free tickets for your team to come to one of the games. So sorry.
RugbyFL is going to be on the hook for about 100 tickets.
Okay, so
I'm just a volunteer host, by the way. This is Charlie's gig.
Mariano, I don't know if you want to say anything else to the rugby community. I really appreciate your time and coming on.
No. So thank you so much. Congratulations, number one, for the amount of seasons that you guys have. I'm seeing there episode 54, which is quite a bit of episodes. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for taking the time to give us, a spot to go to the public and let them know what we are about. I want to highlight the important for us, for all of the rugby community, to join us in the camps, get to know us, and we are hoping to create one of the best match experiences that we can do in Florida. So we are looking forward to see everyone in the series of camps and in the opening.
I'm really looking forward to that, because you have repeated that, the game day experience a lot. So that is very exciting. And I have to ask you, who's going to win the World Cup other than Uruguay, which is the favorite?
Look, I have two favorites.
Okay, yeah. Everybody.
So we have players in Los Pumas and in Los Teros. So, my heart is down there in the Southern Cone. I spent quite a bit of time in both places, in Colonia,
nice.
In Uruguay, and in Buenos Aires. So, look, and also our neighbors in Chile, we love them as well. So I'm rooting for the Southern Cone to do a very good World Cup. In particular, if our players get to final stages, we would be so excited. And I tend to put my heart where my bets and where my heart are. So I'm betting on those two, on Uruguay and Los Pumas.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you very much, Mariano.
Thank you for joining us.
Hopefully, we'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Charlie, I was trolling people on Instagram this week. I went on the Portugal rugby page and commented that they could legitimately win their group, and the Australians were losing their minds.
Wow.
Which brings me great joy. I love to see it.
It's going to be a really exciting World Cup, I think.
Should be good.
Let me tell you, man, this having the Sharks as it's going to be something really exciting, because do you remember the last time we had like a really good rugby game here other than our local teams?
I can't remember anything in Florida outside of
you weren't even
rugby.
here. No, but you weren't even here. The last game we had of the next level was a game with Life against Alumni from Argentina. That was, I think, 2015. That same year we had also Chile USA for the World Cup run, and we haven't had anything since. So I think being able to go to a game at this level is going to be really good for especially for the kids that are coming up. Okay, let's move on. Now we have the second portion of our podcast. Something unusual is happening in Florida. For the first time in my memory, at least, we have several candidates for VP positions in the union. Today, we're going to talk to the people who are wanting to get the VP for women and the current VP of women. And next week, we're going to be talking to the people who want to run for the VP of college. This has, as I said, I don't recall some other time. So let's bring in our guest, Mary Miller, current VP of Women. How are you doing, Mary? Thank you for coming.
Well. Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks for having me.
Jennifer Fassano, one of the candidates from the North. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Great. Nick Cummings. How you doing, Nick? From
Good,
North Flow
Charlie. How you
Sports.
doing?
That's what he's famous for. And we may have Andrea Devonport calling in from her practice. She has some work issues, but she may jump in. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Mary,
All right, so
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I can take over this portion, Charlie.
Go ahead.
So awesome, welcome. Thank you all for coming. Like as Charlie was saying, normally we show up and there is almost a delegation, or we're begging for volunteers. We have one person running unopposed. I think it's good that we have some competition. Generally, there is no shortage of critiques from the sidelines of people saying how it could be done better, and very few people stepping up to actually run. It happens. It happens once a year where there's a Facebook argument and it's got 7,000 comments about how much everything sucks. And my opinion is always thank the people who show up and do it. So let's just go around the room and 30 seconds or less. Who are you and what do you think you can bring to the table? So Mary, let's start with you as the incumbent.
Well, as you all know by now, I'm not rerunning, but it is a pleasure to be here. My name is Mary Miller. Currently reside in Tampa, Florida. I started my rugby career at USF many years ago. Dabbled a little bit of rugby in North Carolina. Joined the Air Force. Kind of went off the grid for a little bit. Came back to Tampa. Joined the Tampa Crew when they were starting up their women's team. Helped it build up before I joined the FRU. It's been a wild ride trying to deal with COVID and get a lot of the ideas and goals that we wanted to fruition. And unfortunately, my personal life just does not allow for enough hours in the day. So that is where we are with that. But I am excited to see that there are more than one person interested, and really excited to see what they have to offer. And more importantly, so the people who are able to vote, the women's teams of the division. So the 4 teams, they'll actually be able to meet the candidates beforehand so that they can kind of get a good idea of who they want as their representative at the top. So
that's fantastic. So I'd like to be the first one to say thank you for everything you've done for the union. Hopefully we can give you a verbal thanks instead of an obituary style thank you like we gave Evan.
Yes, thank
you. Jennifer, who are you and why you for Women's VP?
All right, so I currently reside in Tallahassee, Florida. I am a assistant coach for the FSU women's team here. But my start in rugby, move Nick up. But my start in rugby started actually at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. I also got to play with the high performance player team here in Florida. And then I moved and played some USA South. And then I played for Tampa women's and Orlando women's. So a lot of Florida based teams I've been around, and I'm just excited to potentially help continue the plans that Mary has put in place and then widen that however it seems to fit for women's rugby here.
Excellent. Nick.
Hello, my name is Nick Cummings. I've been playing rugby about 7 years. I live in Fort Lauderdale. Started in high school, played at the University of North Florida, and been playing with SoFlo, and this year I'll be playing with Boca. As Charlie mentioned, I own No Flop Sports, and I pride myself on covering women's rugby a lot because not very many people cover women's rugby, right? If someone says rugby, they always automatically think men's rugby. So we're trying to flip that. We're trying to have them think women's rugby as well. And I think with my reach of No Flop Sports, I can help not only the growth of women's rugby in Florida, but help these athletes, these women reach their highest level of potential wherever they want to reach, what professional, USA, whatever it is.
Perfect. So first question, what do you think the biggest challenges to women's rugby are in Florida, that is?
Not enough teams, not enough players. So definitely 3 women's teams this past season, 3 real collegiate teams this past season, and no high school teams affiliated with any of these teams. And most of these teams have been around for a long time, so they should all most definitely have a high school team attached to them, right? Especially Fort Miami. big metropolitan area, Jacksonville, Tampa, right? These aren't small towns. These are huge population cities. And same with the colleges, Tallahassee, UCF, UF, right? I know these other teams, Orlando women's, right, doesn't have enough yet, but hopefully we can grow them into a team and expand and have more teams. I know Indian River used to have a women's team. What happened to them, right? That wasn't too long ago they had a team. So just try to rebuild what was there and then expand from there and develop the youth, because without the youth, we will not see women's rugby in Florida in 10, 15 years. So
what specifically could the union do? Because we probably all agree we need more teams, more players. The high school situation you mentioned, that's a really tough one. But from the union side, because you also have the clubs have to do probably more than they're doing. But from the union side, as a VP, what could you specifically do to make this happen?
well, again, I believe my outreach of No Flop Sports appeals to the youth. I believe I have kids all the way from as young as 12 years old up to their mid-30s paying attention to me, watching what I do on a weekly basis and how I interact with the community, going to games. They love to see me out there. And just like I said, you said the union teams aren't doing enough, and I completely agree. Like for right now, I'm on the FRU website. It's not even updated since 2021. So just little things that need updated, need help to do, right? Like it still has the old president on here. Like it doesn't even have Rick. It's got Kerry, right?
I know.
I
call Rick. When I call Rick, I address him as Kerry. But it's not.
But none of the women's
the first
teams.
problem is that you're going to the union website. You got to be going to RugbyFL.
Wow.
That's
But I definitely believe the union teams are not doing enough. They like to say they're doing enough, but we want to see it in action. So like this year, the men's D2, you're required to play a B-side game and it counts for a point. I don't see why women's D2 shouldn't be doing the same. So it motivates teams to get out there, recruit, and help the next generation of rugby players.
So very good. Jennifer, so same question to you. What do you think the biggest challenges facing women's rugby in Florida is?
So as someone who's been a part of it and playing, I think Nick has a lot of great ideas and is right. He's doing a great job covering us. But I'll add, it's just not coverage alone for women's rugby. It's these teams are trying. And when you meet and you talk to all these teams, you realize we have brilliant teams at getting sponsorships, at getting field time, recruiting. Tampa's been doing fantastic, expanding their team and playing. It's just that they're in the middle of the state. Sometimes it gets hard to, where can we expand to? So I think something the union could assist in doing is kind of helping expand that reach of who are we playing to expand our game. When we have a team like Indian River, for example, they had to fold, but the sustainability of some teams, although the union can help, I think making sure the rest of our teams stay strong is the next point of then rebuilding an Indian River and adding extra teams. But there are other unions, Georgia Rugby Union, Carolina Rugby Union, True South Rugby Union, that I know Mary and I have been talking to as well, that are interested in us and more games with us, because we don't really connect the two states or the other states on the side. And they're interested on how can we propel the Southeast women's rugby region in general. And with that, I've also tried to reach out to USA South with Joel Bernard and Chris Martin, and talking about, you all have been developing from the youth up, just like Nick said as well. Like that's super important. But a lot of our women's teams are connected to cities that have colleges, and I think breaking down, why aren't they looping right in? Orlando has a great feed system. They fixed some things, and that's probably going to be back. Jacksonville has UNF right there. They don't have a women's club. They have a men's club. So they have some of those situations figure, all right, how can we get a club at UNF? Fort Miami used to have FIU and Boca. And so those are the things in the past that I think if those are adjusted and worked on, all those pools of players and youth and people excited to play rugby are there. We just got to start pointing them back in the right direction, and then giving those teams that are exceptional, the extra chance to play higher outside of Florida, I think we'll see a lot of progress for not only women but the union in general.
Yeah, so I agree, and there's definitely room to grow, and there's lots of things that can be done. A lot of times, I think we struggle with not necessarily setting our goals too lofty, but the plans that we talk about are these very high level. How do we change the entire structure? What do you think can be done in the next 6 months to help women's rugby?
I think it starts with acknowledging and recognizing what we have right now and what we can do right away, right? So I think it's like a job interview. Okay, first 6 months, what are you doing? I'm walking in first and making sure, the job's done. We have to get our schedules put together. We have to see how efficiently we can do that this year, especially since we still only have 4 teams. But being in contact with the other unions, I'm wondering, okay, how can we enhance fall ball right now? How can we enhance who we're playing with in the fall? Is Fort Miami getting enough teams because they're so deep south? Who do they get to play to better their game before the season, before Matrix season starts? So I'd be trying to make those connections to see who can come down, play some Florida ball with us and enhance that. And then I just like that. I'm always the person, I want to see what's going on in the room before I make any, like you're saying, some lofty goals. But there's definitely a direction we're heading with development of not only the athlete, but women referee development, administrative development. We have some clubs that are very good at one thing and some clubs that are still struggling with that, even if they're a good team. So how are we connecting those dots? I think those would be priority right off the bat.
Yeah. And then Nick, if you were to get the VP nomination, what would be your number one task?
I agree with Jennifer on the scheduling and the out-of-state playing. With the scheduling, I would love to see all teams have at least 20 players registered before we can actually put them on that Matrix season schedule, because like Orlando last year, all their games were forfeits. Like they came down here to Fort Miami. I went to the game. They had 10 players. Half their team was Fort Miami players. And we just can't have that and compete on a national stage like that, because you do need 6 regular season games that aren't forfeits for you to compete at the national level. So
I do want to add to that, though, Nick, is that Orlando did come to me. Me and Evan had worked with them over the course of the fall in trying to get them to develop ways that they could recruit, and it just didn't work out for them. So it's not that they just all of a sudden didn't have it. And they stayed in communication. I have a group chat with all of the club presidents. And, I always tell them, if you guys have any issues, please come to me. We'll do what we can to help you. And so it was already pre-known before the season, and yes, we allowed them to stay within the Matrix season so that they didn't fold as a club. And also that way they could get some playing time for the people that they do have coming. Even if it was 5 people, it was giving the other clubs an opportunity to play for the sake of the Matrix season. So it's not that it was like, all of a sudden they're forfeiting and, they're ruining the Matrix schedule. That it was a known thing, and we did what we could, and that was what they agreed that was the best for their club.
And I don't disagree.
They showed up to 7th season, and Orlando had 20 women on a regular basis. They kicked ass in 7s this year. Yeah. So I don't cut you off, Nick. Go ahead.
No, you're all right. And I don't disagree with keeping them on the schedule. I just think that if another team shows up with a full 23 and the other team shows up with 10, it just doesn't look good for the union, for the teams that are competing. So I would love to see the registration at least 20 before we put anyone on the schedule. And another thing with the out-of-state teams, unfortunately, we can't put them on the schedule because they're not in our conference. I would love to see, I know we're the Florida Rugby Conference, and that works for men's because we have so many teams, but women, how many teams are there in Georgia that are also struggling to get games? Alabama, right? These and I know those are far trips from a team like Fort Miami to get all the way up there, but if in a few years we still have 3-4 teams and we've been exhausting all of our resources, we need to look at other options, which I hope is not the case. I hope in 3-4 years we have 7-8 women's teams throughout the entire state we can look to and have an actual season with.
Let me tell you, we can have 7-8 teams, but they're not going to happen just by miracle. These things have to be.
Well, that's why I said
working on that.
4 years of hard work. I said exhaust all our resources.
I just want to what Mary said about keeping Orlando in the mix. I think it's very important not to let the teams fold completely, because then it's really hard to come back. Once a club is out, like everything goes to beep. So, I think it was the right decision to keep them. And I was going to ask you guys as an idea, because you definitely have a lack. One problem is a lack of competition also, because with just 4 teams, you have a 6-game schedule, and that's really not too much. So one idea that I was thinking, and Jennifer, you mentioned teams from Georgia and stuff. Why don't we bring teams down here? Like, for example, in the fall, organize a little tournament. Okay, can be a 1-day thing, and you bring a couple of teams from Georgia, Tennessee, or whatever. Everybody should like to come to. Everybody likes to come to Florida, right? So that's an idea, to bring teams, and so you guys have more competition, because if you just have, because some teams, as you were mentioning, for Miami, doesn't have really against who to play down here, because is not really, they're trying to pull it off. If I disappear, there's no other women's teams. They have no competition, and it's pretty much the same for everybody, because you guys are all like separated. You have to travel a lot. So that would be one idea I would suggest.
Is there a question in there, Charlie? You're just rambling for 10 minutes.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure.
Well, there's been several conversations over the years, not just because the needs of the women's clubs change all the time. Even though the game is the same and we require the same, and it's beneficial to have referees that are high speed referees to help them with their game, whether they're a competitive team or not. Every year it's the same struggle with all of the clubs in the women's side. It's not as easy to just say, hey, we're going to recruit. I mean, even somebody like Tampa still has struggle recruiting and finding out, okay, do we have those numbers by the deadline? One of the things that we've done twice, at least in the past, were development camps that included the college teams. We held one back in 2019, right before the pandemic kind of kicked off, and it was kind of done last minute, but it was rather successful. We had about 80-something players that came from all over. We had a couple of referees, I think, that were doing some development. There were some new coaches that were able to run some of the lanes. And one of the biggest things that people really took away from that was that they were able to come together and just learn from each other and see who was available and who was out there, and know that they had that connection. So I think it was important to bridge that gap between the college divisions. We also, one of the goals that I had was to expand that down to the high school girls and still continue. And that development clinics, at least once or twice a year, was something that the women's clubs have actively said that they want to keep doing. And, we want to make sure that they're provided that. Even if, say somebody, for example, like they have the girls that are from Indian River, that there might be 4 people that are still interested in playing rugby, but they're just not able to travel to Orlando like they did in the past to play on their games. They can still come out and do rugby. So there's a lot of goals that we have visions for, and whoever, ends up being that person, you guys can kind of pretty much take on a lot of those ideas to help bridge those age groups and build women's rugby. But, Nick, like you did say, one of the biggest struggles is all of this stuff is always happening in the background. These women's clubs are doing amazing things. They're not getting enough accolades. They're doing it for themselves, and that in itself is a struggle sometimes, and it takes a lot of their time and effort to share it with the FRU, to say, hey, can you post this? So what I'd like to see more of is just really a lot of, marketing in itself, like Jen said, is not enough. But, if whatever is out there is able to cover more of it, I think is always beneficial. But it's not everything.
It's something more than we've ever had.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's something. So we there's a lot of things that the clubs have all said that they've wanted, and I think it's great that they're on the same page. So keeping that line of communication with each other has been helpful. It's just a matter of being past the idea phase and onto the execution.
Yeah, so excellent point. All the comments in the Facebook chat here. There's a lot about, we want to fact check that Charlie was actually a national team representative, but then the rest of them are about how do we change the youth, right? And there's a lot of good points of where the conversation has mostly been directed at the adults in the existing clubs. What can the union do, and if you were represented, what would you do to help facilitate? Because as a VP, you can't say you start a club now. You don't necessarily have edict authority, but what can you do to incentivize the growth of new clubs? Nick, you want to start first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Well, I think, and it's killing me, I forgot her name, but in Wellington, she's been working really hard to start
Helen Archer.
Helen, yes. I'm sorry, Helen. I forgot your name. I apologize. But she's been doing an amazing job starting that youth and high school program. They played in a sevens tournament this past summer. The high school girls did, and it looked like they had about 20 girls out there, which was nice to see. But it does take that hard work. You can walk into any public high school and have a meeting with the athletic director. You can set that up within a week. And if the women's teams in the area are having a problem with what to say, good. We can write something up for you. Go in, have a conversation with them. If you need the VP, president to go with you, whoever's in your area, good. But like down here, they're starting another men's high school team at Fort Lauderdale, and that's all because they've been going around and talking to high schools. Said, hey, if we showed up to your high school and talked to your football program, your baseball kids, and would anyone be interested? And it's like, yeah, you guys can come sit down, have a meeting, talk for 30 minutes with our kids. Like you can, again, just any public high school there, it's a public school funded. Like you can walk in there, have a sit down meeting with either the principal, the athletic director, and just get ideas passed. If they say no, hey, just move on, right? There's tons of high schools in Florida, tons of high schools in the area. And then with the youth, it would be a little harder. You'd have to get them set up camps, development, right? Show up to a youth sports event that's already going on and set up a table and a tent and just pass out flyers, something, right? More groundwork, but it's all work at the end of the day, and it needs to be done.
Yeah, Jennifer, what are your thoughts on growing the youth game?
So I've been thinking about this as well, and in attempts not to repeat anything that Nick said or anything like that. I think I've seen firsthand some of the youth teams that we've had. I know Tampa has been one of the most recent ones, having some clinics. They've had some youth clinics for their team. They'll have the women come down and help teach. So that is slow going, but it's actually looking pretty good. Again, a lot of women are coming out, a lot of girls are coming out, but mostly the men's side is easier to, predict, okay, if we get the youth in now, how fast can we get them to keep playing? And I've also been part of Orlando, and when Orlando women's was having a high school team, and they were playing, and they had a coach, and they were sustainable. There was girls out there, but the reason they ended up not being as productive was because there was no other teams to play. So I'll add in the same thing as, like, how do we get other high schools to have a team to begin? Who is their coach? How are they going to stay sustainable? And who are they going to play? Because I've seen the teams be created. Wellington's doing a fantastic job. I remember them, though, to get more playing time, would come to our sevens tournaments back when it'd be like in Sebring, and they would ask if they could join in on our team and just play as extra players off our bench if we didn't mind. And I think that has grown so much, but that difficulty is, where are they getting playing time with people their own age and size and weight and skill level? So I add to Mary's, development clinics. How can we connect women's teams in that? I won't repeat, like, talking to high schools, sometimes giving a couple FRU rugby balls to a PE teacher and sending them a how-to and saying, start teaching them in class if you don't mind. You have an extra game to play some touch rugby. But that disconnect is just, how can we figure out playing time? And once we get there, wherever they go off to college, if they stay in Florida, lucky us, they'll probably come back to their own women's teams that they started. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the comments, and I agree with Nick and you all. Youth is super important, but those direct things, they have to happen, but it's going to take a little bit, but the plans are in action, and it's only our job or Andrea's job to try, and we have plans. We just got to see where it goes.
Good. And then how do you overcome your weaknesses? So Jennifer being based in North Florida with the majority of rugby happening in South Florida or Southwest Florida, how do you overcome that?
What was the first half? I'm sorry, it broke out.
So how do you overcome your weaknesses being based in North Florida?
Oh, well, if anybody saw me over the summer, I travel relentlessly for rugby. It's kind of my main thing, and enough where that's why when I work for FSU as a sport clubs coordinator, so I oversee 40 sport clubs as is. That's part of my administrative position here. But rugby is everything to me. They don't have a women's club nearby except for PCB. A little too far for me to just for practice, but that's why I started assistant coaching. So in terms of traveling, I was all over the place this summer because it's worth it for me. I think rugby is super important. It was super important in my identity growing in, especially I've only been in Florida rugby. I've nonstop every team I'm in Florida. So I got fantastic coaches and fantastic mentors and fantastic people above me that have influenced me and inspired me for this position in the beginning. So I don't think I'm going to let distance hold me back from anything that needs to be done for a job like this.
And then Nick, how do you overcome the relatability being not a woman going for the women's VP spot?
I don't think gender matters. I think you hire the best at any position in life, no matter what you're going up for. So, and that is the only comment I've been getting is, why are you a man running for women's VP? Because I give a shit about women's rugby. That's why. So I don't really have any. If anyone says you're not a woman, cool. I care about women's rugby. That's all it is.
Awesome. And then closing comments, less than 30 seconds, summarize why you. Nick?
Like I said, I think I can bring, hopefully expand women's rugby here in Florida. Collegially, we have a bunch of teams that want to get started. Hopefully we can expand those back into teams, FIU, all these other teams, and then push them into their local women's teams, or if they move back home, if they're staying in Florida, push them to their local women's teams. And if there's none there, try to start one up. Just hopefully continue to grow women's rugby, no matter what's going on. So,
Jennifer, why you?
I'll say my has it been almost over 8 years of experience just in Florida rugby and playing at the collegiate level and the women's level, and then even the short span of time that we had a high performance level, that I understand most of the struggles that we're going through, that can be different from the men's side, and I understand what we need to progress and go forward off the goals that we have. So I think with my connections both in the state and out of the state, I'm excited for the potential to kind of see what I can do for the state.
Andrea, thanks for joining us. I will give you a full minute instead of the 30 seconds I gave everybody else.
You're the best. I'm sorry, guys.
So I was asking them their quick summary. Can we get a quick introduction to yourself, your current role in rugby in Florida, and then why we should vote for you for women's VP?
So I don't currently have a role like on a board or anything anymore. I was the president of Fort Miami for 4 years, the vice president, the secretary, the match secretary for Fort Miami for several years. So I stepped back last year and let the kids take over, as they say. And so now I'm excited to try to give back in another way and try to incorporate some of the women's rugby. And obviously the focus is on the women's side, but we won't have a women's side without the kids. So we really kind of have to integrate that into like our decision-making process for the women. That
is fantastic. That is basically a quick summary of everything we've talked about for the last 40 minutes.
Sorry, guys. Publix doesn't care that I want to do rugby stuff when they have a whole store down. So sorry about that.
I'm really glad to see you, Andrea, in the mix, because you have been very vocal over the years criticizing. So that's like the best background for somebody to now move into the position of.
You got to put your money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And I love it because she is by far the better Devonport.
Oh my God. I'm gonna
Pretty good
start.
one anyway.
Of all the Devonports I know.
Of all of them.
Mary.
And then Mary, you want to give us some closing comments on kind of what you've seen for women's rugby in the last couple of years and your hopes and desires for the future?
Well, I think I've covered kind of some of the struggles. We've kind of beat that one up. Is, you know, obviously there's some changes that need to go over the hump, and we're past the idea phase. We're past the talking about it phase, and COVID's no longer an excuse. We need somebody in this position. I want to reiterate again, the voting is going to take place at the AGM on September 16th at Okeechobee County Public Library, 2 p.m. For this particular position, it's the 4 teams, Orlando, Fort Miami, Jacksonville, and Tampa, that are voting for this position to be their VP representative. So the message that I would give those clubs in terms of who they would want to, or who I would encourage them, I guess, to vote for, is somebody who's relevant, who understands where they're coming from, that they believe that can be their advocate. There's a lot of changes happening in the leadership with FRU right now. More than half the board is going, and just happens to be all the females. Diversity is super important, and I'm not just talking like gender diversity. I'm talking about where you're coming from.
Nick.
You know, no, it's.
I know.
I mean,
Diversity
has a different background. That's not at all what I was saying, Nick. But, you know, just regionally, things like that, because North Florida, South Florida struggle with a lot of very different, they have different struggles and different needs. But somebody who has the experience, somebody who's passionate and can be there to advocate for the women, whether they're successful or they're struggling, and really just kind of be present. I'm thankful for the opportunity to have been in this position over the course of a few years. I wish that I had more time in the day to be able to help prioritize more, and to really be a part of this new wave of changes that are potential. And I really hope for the best, and I hope that everybody, you know, I appreciate everybody's interest in the position, and regardless of whether you make it or not, to still be able to help out women's rugby is what I hope you still actively try to do. It's important, and I appreciate Charlie and Tom for having us on here and really highlighting this whole thing. So
Can I just say, Mary was in like a really tough position, like during COVID, and she navigated that, you know, really, really well. So she kind of came in at a rotten time. And so, you know, we never really got to see like everything Mary wanted to get done, because she was kind of up against the wall for a couple of years of her hands kind of tied behind her back, but she navigated it really well and did a really good job. So thank you so much for everything you did for us.
thank you, Andrea. I know you were there with us with the whole president stuff too. So at the same time, so yeah, we made it work.
Fantastic. Well, for those of you who didn't know, 2 weeks from tomorrow is the Florida AGM. Charlie, we got to get some graphics, some information on that. We can get to the masses. It's the one opportunity. Like I said in the beginning, it's always easy to take cheap shots from the sideline, or complain about things how aren't the way they should be, or things could always be better. This is the chance to do it. So I appreciate all of you for stepping up. And then Mary, thank you for everything you've done. I will say that I don't want to do any of this stuff, so I need people like you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
No, thanks again.
So appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So Charlie, do you have a well-scripted sign-off? I think this is the best podcast we've ever done, in my opinion.
Well, you haven't done too many, so you have done 3. So I've done 54. So I've done much better for sure.
I'm mostly just, after years of talking about the Miami Sharks, the last update we had was the Instagram handle being produced or made or taken, and then now it feels like it's a real thing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, it feels for real. So, just before we sign off, thank you to everybody who came. Really appreciate that. To our guest, we just have to say that next Friday, we're gonna have the college VP candidates. That's gonna be pretty exciting because there's stuff going on in college men.
And the same thing, we've got multiple candidates as well for that position.
Yeah. So that is that. Just remind you to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get notifications, and I guess we'll see you then, hopefully. Next Friday, 7 p.m. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Yellow Card. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. I'm getting rusty, man.